Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the Om Times Radio Network.
Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the Om Times Radio Network. I'm coming to you live today from the beautiful foothills of the Rocky Mountains here in Boise, Idaho. I have a delightful guest for you today. We have Paula Rosenfeld, and she is a awakened certified oneness trainer, and she is the author of the book, The Oneness Blessing, How Deeksha Can Help You Become Your Authentic Self, Heal Your Relationships, and Transform the World. So I'm excited to talk about that. But before we get there, I'll just let you know that if you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to know more about intuitive readings or conscious weight loss or any of the other services I offer, you can go and find that on my website. Of course, I'm always holding our hashtag Entanglement Radio contest. So if you'd like to win a free intuitive reading with myself, you can go to Twitter and just say, hey, I'm a listener, or I loved your guest last week, or have you thought about doing a show on this? And I will put all those names into a hat and pick one lucky winner every month. And if you are not on Twitter, don't worry, you can go to Facebook at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio and do the same thing there. So next week we have Mind, Body, Spirit author Judy Hall. I think she's written, I don't know, like 20 or so many books. And we are talking about crystal healing and the powers of, the healing powers of crystals. So I'm excited to do that next week. And I just want to pause for a moment because today is Wednesday, November 11th, and I just want to express my gratitude for those who serve our country and those who have served in the past. And I think it's an important part, even if necessarily you don't always agree with some of our choices that we make. I think that we really do need to honor and respect the people that do serve. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you do and for all of those who have maybe lost their lives or have served our country in the past. So thank you. So this week we are talking about the oneness blessing, and the way that my life works is that usually I have some sort of lesson that shows up or some, that corresponds with my guest. So I actually had this lady, I had experienced a oneness blessing several years ago, but then I had this lady in my life. She says, hey, do you want to go to this oneness circle? And it's coming up on Sunday. And I thought, hey, yeah, that would be cool. And then I look at my schedule and I think, oh my goodness, perfect timing, because I'm going to have Paula on and we're going to be talking about the oneness blessing. So it was a really beautiful experience. And I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that with my guest. So let me introduce my guest. Paula Rosenfeld, Awakened Certified Oneness Trainer, is passionately dedicated to helping people become happy, healthy, and fulfilled. She launched her private practice From the Heart Center in 1992. Her vibrational toolkit includes ancient shamanic healing techniques, energy balancing, intuitive consultations, coaching, teaching oneness courses and meditation, and inspiring people through the written word. Paula's awakening in 2013 at Oneness University in India ignited an even deeper desire to assist in the transformation of world consciousness. As a certified oneness trainer, she initiates people to become Deeksha givers, giving them an opportunity to rapidly grow in awareness and happiness and to help others grow as well. So with that, I feel very honored and blessed to welcome Paula Rosenfeld to the program. Hello, Paula.
Hello, Angela. Thank you for having me.
Well, I am pretty excited to have you on, and I'm excited that I was able to experience firsthand a oneness blessing this past Sunday. So I want to ask you first off, because, as I'm looking at your vibrational toolkit, shamanic healing techniques, energy balancing, intuition, coaching, all of this stuff. And I think, you had all of that, and then you went and you learned about oneness blessings. So tell me how how that came to be.
Well, the thing about the oneness blessing is it usually finds you. And so many people say that, and it was true for me. There happened to be two trainers at the spiritual center that I regularly attended who found me one day when I was promoting a shamanic journey circle. And so they invited me to attend, and that's how I discovered the oneness blessing, which is usually transmitted in groups of people. People gather together and receive numerous blessings at an event. It sounds like you went to one of those the other night.
Yeah. So, for people who are listening who have never heard of a oneness blessing, can you tell us a little bit more about, what that entails and what exactly Deeksha is?
Sure. The oneness blessing, and it's also called oneness Deeksha, is a transmission of sacred energy that is passed through the hands of a initiated blessing giver through the top of the head to the recipient. And that energy transmission is, I'll use the word engineered to work on creating some change in the brain. It actually works by quieting the parietal lobes of the brain and supporting the frontal lobe. So the parietal lobes are those fight or flight mechanism areas that produce, reactivity, stress. That's the response you usually get when that's activated. And we're all living with that constantly, especially in this day and age. The frontal lobe is the area of the brain that supports seeing the unity in all things, supporting inner peace and a sense of oneness. So that's why it's called the oneness blessing. It actually shifts your perception of the way things are.
And so does this change in the brain, does this just happen while you're experiencing, while you're, in a oneness circle and people are giving you the oneness blessing, or is this something that becomes a permanent change?
Well, it definitely can become a permanent change. Sometimes it takes repeated oneness blessings. Really, what it takes is for every person's individual divine, whatever they call that, sacred essence, whether it's God, their higher self, the universe. But permanent awakening is a gift from this higher source. We can't make it happen, but we can support it. We can sort of prime the pump. We can gather together, meditate, raise our kundalini, receive oneness blessings, and at some point you'll be gifted if you're meant to with this awakening. On the steps to permanent awakening, however, there are awakened states, and I think many of the listeners today have experienced this. You might have an experience where you have a sense of the oneness. You feel one with all that is. You feel utterly and completely in union with your divine, perhaps. Those kind of experiences are one awakened states. And often people have many of them that might eventually lead to permanent awakening.
And so you've used the word awakening a few times, and I know that the way it's described from a oneness blessing perspective is slightly different. So can you tell us what's all involved? Obviously, you talked about the shift in the brain and moving from the parietal lobes to the frontal. So can you tell us a little bit more about what an awakened person looks like from a oneness blessing perspective?
Absolutely. And the book is really about that, the many ways of how an awakened person would look and how they look as they're going through the awakening process, because it's really all a continuum. But basically, it all boils down to what has been the goal of meditation for centuries. As long as people have been meditating, the purpose has been to bring one's consciousness into the present moment, to be aware, to have heightened awareness of what is. And so awakening, the way the oneness phenomenon uses it, is the ability to stay with the what is for longer and longer periods of time. And I could talk a lot about that. So,
well, yeah, that was going to be my next question, because that is the idea of staying with what is something that is a very common thread throughout the book. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, first of all, what the human race has to deal with across the board is that chatter of the mind that so many of us call monkey mind, that constant inner dialogue that is generated from our mind. And the mind generates this dialogue because, there's a collective consciousness that we all have inherited by sheer just force of being alive. So we share this mind, this capacity to be caught up in our mind.
Well, I'm going to, because I want to give you plenty of opportunity to speak on this, because it is such an important point. So you can hear the break music. So when we get back, I want to learn more about staying with what is, and then talk about some of the concepts that are important to the teachings of the Oneness Blessing. So we'll do that when we return here on Integument Radio. We'll be right back.
The future of Internet radio is here. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on Om Times Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
If you're just joining us today, we are talking with author and awakened oneness. the awakened certified oneness trainer, Paula Rosenfeld, and we were talking about the subject of her book, The Oneness Blessing. So before the break, we wanted to get into this idea of staying with what is, and you were setting us up kind of just telling us about the state of affairs in this world and the busyness of our minds, the busyness of our lives, and this feeling of disconnection. So now I'd like you to tell us more about what that means to be staying with what is.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, that's only half the story. So the other part of it is there is in our consciousness is the ability to witness our minds doing all this chattering. So this witnesser is actually consciousness itself. It is the essence of who we are. So awakening, and believe me, we are all on this path. I am certain of it. We are all coming into a higher awareness that we are not our minds. We are this other essential essence, this unifying force that imbues all life with consciousness. And so it's making the shift from identifying with the chatter of your mind, the stories of your mind, to this eternal, ever-creative, all-powerful essence that we are. And I'm sorry, I just want to say one more thing, because there are so many ramifications that unfold when you do make that shift. And that's what the book is about. You know, it affects everything. It affects your relationships, your health, your prosperity, your purpose in life. All of that begins to shift as your perception and your awareness shift from identifying with your mind.
So is it enough for people, to seek out, and I was actually quite surprised as I was looking in, just here in Boise, I think there was 5 or 6 different circles held every week. And Boise isn't a large center at all. So is it enough to go and to participate in the circles, or in order to really have that awakening in the way that you're talking about, the shift in the relationships and the abundance and the health, do you have to continue training in another way, like maybe going to India or finding something more locally?
You don't have to do anything, really. I mean,
I like that.
Yeah, we're in a global process of awakening. What the Oneness Blessing does is it's known as a shortcut. It really accelerates this path. So the choice is totally yours, and it's going to be individual for each person. There's no rules at all to the oneness phenomenon. But if you were to get repeated Deeksha, it might speed up the shift in consciousness that you go through. Part of it is how you're utilizing your own capacity to do your inner work, how you're looking within to change what happens on the outer, because everything is an inside job. So for people who are looking inward, they're meditating perhaps, they're just living, but they're understanding that the world is a reflection or a mirror of our inner state. So the Deeksha actually supports us in having higher awareness of what is our inner state, of looking within and seeing the patterns, seeing what the conditioning is that came through our families and affected our thinking. We're all conditioned differently, but it's really the conditioning of the mind that affects everything in our life, our relationships, our purpose, all that.
So when you talk about the conditioning, because one of the words that I really connected with was the word charges. And you talk about charges. Can we look at those in the same way as our conditioning, or are charges something different than that?
Well, I think they're connected, but a charge is an emotional reaction that one might get because of perhaps an old wound. And the old wound, ultimately everything winds back to conditioning, I believe. But as children, many of us begin to make up stories to explain the what is, to explain why we might have been hurt, to explain why we may have felt neglected or unloved. I mean, some of that may indeed be true, but what happens is we have an emotional reaction at the time, and the mind sort of labels it. And, say, and I see this all the time with my clients, you might come from a large family, and perhaps you're the fifth kid of 7 or something. And so you just don't get much attention. And your mom and dad aren't very available. Well, pretty soon you begin to feel worthless, or you begin to feel you're not good enough because you see the attention going anywhere. So that turns into an old pattern of thinking. So then the feelings get stuffed down because that's what humans do generally. They try to avoid feeling bad. And that's part of what the mind helps us to do. The mind will put a blame on it, on someone else for often for how we're feeling inside. So jump ahead, this child, this fifth of 7, grows up, and in the office they work in, the boss has to maybe oversee 25 people, and this person never gets attention, never gets recognition for their work. Pretty soon they're emotionally charged, they're triggered, and the tape that's running through their mind is, they don't treat me well enough. I should find another job. Underneath that, there's maybe another story that goes, I'm really not good enough. I just, I'll never make a lot of money. I'll never rise to fame. I'll never be whatever, So these are charges. The outside world sort of reignites old patterns, old wounds. And so what happens when you're doing your internal work, you begin to stay with the charge, the feeling. You see where it's living in your body. You start to own it. You learn how to own it as your charge, your old wound. It may have nothing to do with what happened on the outer, and the truth is your boss may be just too busy and too concerned with impressing his or her boss, It could, most of the time, everything is just a reflection of where we need to grow. So that's what I mean by doing your internal work. And when you do that, you clean out these energy blockages that come from repressed emotions. And when you clean out that, you actually can positively affect your health, your energy, your focus, your relationships, everything. That's how you begin to be living from your authentic essence. And that's where the magic is.
So in using that example that you gave us, first, I think on your path, you would start to be aware of that charge. Because I think lots of times people don't even understand that, oh, yes, I had this experience as a child where I felt like I was kind of neglected and unheard. And now, lo and behold, I have a boss and he doesn't pay attention to me. So is the first, thing in that is staying with that feeling. And so do you ultimately hope that, or not hope, if you stay with that feeling or staying with what is for long enough, that charge then can just dissipate? Or is there other work that has to be done to release that charge?
No, it actually, you can do it yourself. I mean, that's the key, and that's the freedom. And when you sit down and just feel what you're feeling, that's what releases it. It's not something anyone can do for you, really.
That seems so beautifully simplistic.
Mm-hmm. It is. But see, that requires people facing their uncomfortable feelings.
Yes, I always say, we're a society that's uncomfortable being uncomfortable.
Right. Well put.
And and so I love that. And that, honestly, that was one of the things that I enjoyed about experiencing the Oneness Blessing on Sunday is it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of technique and dogma. And it was again, beautifully simplistic. This wonderful lady, and in this instance, it was only one, but in the time I did before, there was like 6 people going around the circle, and she just put her hands on my head, and it was beautiful, and I could feel it, and there was a lot of sensation, and but again, it was very simple.
It is simple. It's simple, but it's powerful. So the Deeksha just supports your heightened awareness. That's what's going on for people who are receiving it. We have no idea how much the present moment holds. When we begin to become aware of it, we see there's nuance upon nuance,
Yes. Well, we're almost up on a break here. When we get back, I want to talk about a little bit about relationships and abundance. And there's something about releasing our stuff from our ancestors that I thought was a really neat concept that I hadn't really thought about or explored, and the stuff that we carry on, and the idea that our country has its own karma too, which I was like, I wonder what our country's karma is.
Right.
But anyway, I thought it was all fascinating. So we'll talk about abundance and relationships and all of that when we return here with Paula Rosenfeld. You're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque. We'll be right back after this break.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at Om Times Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. Om Times Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. The cutting edge of conscious radio. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque. My guest again today is Paula Rosenfeld, and she's the author of The Oneness Blessing, How Deeksha Can Help You Become Your Authentic Self, Heal Your Relationships, and Transform the World. Well, I love that you start in your book, you start each chapter with a teaching, and I just wanted to read this as we go into our conversation about abundance and prosperity. The awakened one has no problem with wealth, for wealth is not the problem. The unawakened one has a problem with wealth, for the sense of possession is the problem. And I just had to sit and think on that for a few minutes as I thought. And I thought, that is, again, I think about attachment and being so connected to that we need that stuff. And like you said, it's about the inner work. So from a oneness blessing perspective, how do you look at abundance and prosperity?
Well, we live in a very abundant universe, as everyone knows, and there's certainly many, many teachings on abundance. It's really a shift in consciousness so that one appreciates that abundance is who we are. And the grasping, the trying to accumulate, the fear that is underneath all that erodes the truth, which is abundance flows from our contribution, our interaction with life. When we're able to be in touch with our essence and our natural gifts and talents usually start flowing to a greater degree, and that's been my experience, there becomes a shift where you're no longer seeking to fill this void of fear, that's always churning inside, but you're sharing. Your creativity flows through you, actually blessing the world, and therein lies your abundance. Now, this doesn't mean that the oneness phenomenon doesn't want you to go out and have money in the bank. They absolutely do. It has nothing to do with feeling safe, feeling secure, having the beautiful car you'd like, or the house, or clothes. That certainly is an important part of life for many people, and there is nothing wrong with that. But if that's the reason you're living, and you're in fear that you're not going to have enough of that, you have no inner abundance then. You have no ability to just be. So I think that quote speaks to that.
And I know that this is it's a sticking point for a lot of people, especially on the spiritual path. And I've known many, many people who feel like they're living their life on purpose and they're, feel aligned with that. And a lot of healers, and I know many people still really struggle. And so I think it's such a sticking point, because they're saying, on one hand, I feel like I am sharing my gifts and I'm out there, doing my thing. And yet there seems to be this incongruence between, hey, I'm doing this. Shouldn't that equal a sense of abundance and prosperity? What do you have to say to, because I know that that's so hard for people, because we can be in these realms and have this feel connected to source, and yet it's like, well, I still have to pay my phone bill.
Absolutely. I think we are all in that struggle, and we have been so conditioned, speaking of conditioning, to believe that what we want is the phone. We have a society that's been created from a high degree of, desire for the good life, so to speak. I personally can relate to this struggle very much, what I know for myself, and I'm probably best just to answer from that viewpoint, is that I have enough. I always have enough. I may have fear that I don't have enough, but when I'm living in the moment, I'm actually a force of attraction, attracting to me everything that I need. At this point, though I may want to have huge stores of money in the bank, but the truth is that when I have a need, it's always satisfied. The phone bill gets paid. A new client comes. The right person comes into my life. All of that depends on what oneness would say is the bond, the sense of connection to your divine essence. And that's the truth. There's many, many different ways of approaching this, like the Course in Miracles, which many listeners may be familiar with, would say that anything, nothing is real if it's not love. Or, there's the illusions created by the mind, and then there is what is real and eternal. So when we are living in the eternal essence, the truth of who we are, these fears are not churning through us. The fears create more blockage. They prevent us from attracting what we need. I think, there's a certain degree of patience that's required. And no one said this is easy, by the way. We're in a huge, massive paradigm shift. We are. The people alive on Earth now. And it's rough and bumpy at times. And there's a clash of inner peace with tons of fear. And we'll go up and down, But I think when you are on that spiritual path, you will admit that if you wake up in the morning and you connect with your essence, whatever you call it, God, the divine, spirit, universe, and you ask for what you need that day, you're quite apt to get it. And if not that day, maybe the next.
But, I think you said something really important, is that we have this expectation, an idea of what abundance looks like, of what it means to be prosperous. And, that might be 3 flat screen TVs in our house and, all the stuff to fill our space. And I think that part of experiencing that abundance and prosperity is letting that go and realizing that, like you said, there is always enough. And so if your expectation is the Lamborghini and the 6-bedroom house, that to me is more than enough. And when we look, and it's interesting because this, it came from India, and I know that you've been to India. And so looking at the level of poverty and such that they have there, and then here, there's just so much incongruence between what an idea of abundance or prosperity would look like for other countries in the world outside of maybe Western nations.
Yeah. And many people who've traveled the world will say that they visited people with not much money, but a lot of joy. And that is our natural state. So when you come into balance with nature, in relationships, everything readjusts and you begin to have a sense of having enough, and your sense of safety increases, and you go with the flow. You are in the flow of the natural abundance of life. And it doesn't mean that bad things won't happen. They do. Floods happen. People's homes are wiped out in fires. Just turn on the news, and it's full of the calamities that seem to be happening nowadays. But the truth is, those times can be great opportunities for connection on a higher level connection with other people who come to help you, connection with your divine. I know this is true for myself. And even though I've been permanently awakened, I am on a journey. Awakening is a path. It's a continuum. And I do still go back and forth between the conditioning that I've had and the knowing. But more and more, I am able to stay in the knowing that everything is perfect just as it is.
And I think that that's another good point, because when people talk about awakening, or you talked about a paradigm shift, I think lots of people are just looking to that and wanting the suffering to disappear. And I don't think that or that we all kind of ascend and we float around in our like light bodies or something. And to me, that's not the experience that we chose to have coming to this 3D reality. But there is this more awakened consciousness that we can shift to that's still, firmly grounded in this place. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, oneness has a term, has a way of looking at suffering. Suffering is actually the resistance to the what is. It's not the what is itself. It's your resistance. It's your running from it. It's your saying, no, I don't want that. That's what causes us to suffer. There is always going to be pain. People we love die. I just lost my dear kitty. My cat died, and the pain was immense. And all I've been able to do is just let go and just be with it. The suffering comes from trying to drink over it, eat over it, watch TV to not feel it. Pure pain itself moves through you, as do all the emotions. That's why I'm saying, to stay with your feelings. And they do pass.
And I'm sorry to hear about your cat, but I loved what you just said, because I think it gives people a really good, clear idea of what it means to stay with what is. So when we return here, I still want to talk about ancestor liberation and what people can do today to learn more about the Oneness Blessing. So we'll continue our conversation here in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting radio show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on Om Times Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on omtimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go. Yeah!
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. A conscious lifestyle, for a mindful life. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
So, Paula, in the book, it says there's 3 primary causes for problems. 1, relationships, which I think we can all understand and know about that. 2, karma. And 3, ancestor liberation. And I thought that was just such a cool concept. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. This was actually one of the biggest benefits to me personally when I discovered oneness, because I was pretty cut off from thinking about my ancestors, honoring them, nothing that many other cultures actually in the world have been doing and never stopped doing. But who are we? We are energy. On a cellular level, we are our ancestral DNA physically, So embedded in us are all these patterns, all these energetic patterns, all the conditioning, all the experiences of our ancestors. They're actually living alive in us. So, this is something people don't usually think about. But when you become aware of it, I think it'll make a lot of sense that if you are hoping to raise your own vibration, raise your own consciousness, to free yourself from the repression of emotions, from the limiting blockages of energy, you need to free your ancestors. You need to lift them. You need to elevate their living experience, which is still living in you. Does that make sense?
It does. And so again, going back to, is it enough just to open up our awareness to that idea, or is there a process that we need to work through to release to liberate that?
Yes, I think there is a process. People who don't have access, say, to going to India or working with a oneness trainer, who do have processes to help you liberate your ancestors, can work on it on their own, but for that they need to have a deepening relationship with their, higher self, their God, their whatever you call that sacred essence. We need to ask for help. We need to ask for the grace to lift this energy and liberate them. So everything begins in oneness with healing your relationships and deepening your bond with what is sacred to you. From that, you could ask for anything if you have that help, that grace from your divine.
So before the break, we talked about a paradigm shift, and it made me wonder: is the wellness blessing something that has come to our knowledge, to our consciousness, fairly recently, or has it been a practice for a long time, like millenniums?
Well, actually, it does have an 800-year lineage. It was passed down from master to disciple in India. However, in the late 80s, it was brought forward for use of humankind all over the globe. And there are 2 avatars, Amin Bhagwan, who were instrumental in bringing this forward. And it was actually their son, Krishnaji, who was the first person to gift another human being with it, to share the oneness Deeksha with another. And from there, it just grew and spread. And the oneness phenomenon is happening all over the globe at this point. Hundreds of thousands of people come to Oneness University in India from all over the world to explore consciousness, to elevate their awareness, to become awakened to greater and greater degrees.
One thing that I think is interesting is that there, in a lot of different philosophies and perspectives, and so much of the information that was kept secret or very, very sacred is now, just like the Oneness Blessing, is now available to everyone. It's no longer just passed, down from master to teach. It is now something that we are, taking worldwide. And I think that that's such a cool idea that there's, from so many traditions, people are saying, we can't just keep it a secret anymore. This is for everyone.
So true. I have chills just hearing you say that, because we all are knowing, anyone who tunes into the media now, and just by the way people are talking and relating to each other, we are all waking up. And this was predicted in many ancient traditions, that we would be in this new age of enlightenment or awakening, union with the divine. So that is what's going on. And oneness is one way. Oneness is a catalyst. It quickens it. And with all the teachings, there's beautiful models that can be of assistance in guiding you through this process. Because as I said, sometimes it feels a little bumpy, a little uncomfortable. And it's very helpful to have people show you a way to step forward. This was my desire for the book too, and the energy that flowed through it, is really a space to hold the awakening process, to understand it more fully, to explore it, to take your part in what you can do to raise your consciousness. I did want to say, too, that, so much of this shift is an inside job. It's done internally. But there is a part for all of us to take in the outer world. We do have action steps. We do, it's not as big a role as what goes on in the inner. But when you get the clarity to do something, you actually need to do it. And I think this is something maybe that a lot of people on the spiritual path didn't always understand. And speaking for myself, I thought God would do a big part of the heavy lifting, and God does. But there's still a part for us to bring it out, to share it in the world, and that's our gifts.
Well, I like to leave my listeners with something. So if people are here and they're listening, and of course I would say go and get the book, but how would they find a oneness circle in their, where they live?
There's a website they can go to. It's called onenessevents.org, onenessevents.org. And you could find Deeksha gatherings, you could find courses, oneness courses. You can find what's called oneness meditation, which is available pretty much 24/7 all across the world online for free. Mm-hmm. So there are people who are especially initiated to transmit this sacred energy through the eyes. And you can find that on live stream wherever you are if you have a computer. So it's very available. It's very free. It's there for you to find.
Yes, and I highly suggest people check out the experience, because I know a lot of people who have never heard of Oneness Blessing will go after listening to the show, and it'll show up in their space, and it'll be like, oh, right. So I encourage you to check that out. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to give you an opportunity to share where people can find your book, social media, websites, all of that good stuff that you'd like to leave my listeners with today.
Sure. Well, of course, I've got links on my own website, which is www.fromtheheartcenter.com, fromtheheartcenter, all one word, .com. The book, I have all sorts of resources in there, including the websites and contact information for the oneness trainers who I interviewed for the book. And there's onenessuniversity.org. Many resources available to find out more about this.
Well, I just want to thank you, Paula, for being on the program today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Me too. I love talking about this.
Well, thank you so much. And I do encourage listeners, go out there, find a oneness circle. And if there's not one in your area, I think she gave you a really great resource for the online streaming. And I just think definitely should check that out. So coming up next week, we have the amazing Judy Hall. She's written, like 1 million books, and she knows a lot about crystals. And I love talking about crystals. It's kind of like the pinnacle of woo-ness, and I just love it. So we're going to be talking all about that with Judy Hall next week. Coming up next on this station is Om Times Music, so kick back and relax and enjoy that. Or you can always go to the other station and listen to Claire Johnson of Equilarium FM. So don't forget about my hashtag Entanglement Radio. Win a free intuitive reading with me. That draw happens monthly at the first Wednesday of the month. And if you need to find me, you can go to hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And I have some special news for you next week. You can hear my show live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern right here on the Om Times Radio Network. This is Angela Lebeck wishing you love and light. I'll see you next week.